was thinking, you know how like in some of those klezmer tunes you do that stuff and you kind of fall down to a note from the note above it? Yeah. Kind of just do your own thing for a little bit there.
I guess Quest on the Capricorn is a bit of a step away from the real traditional kind of Afro influences on the band. Although I love that music and it's definitely been the kind of the foundation, the core of the group for the past 3 years. You know, at the same time, we're influenced by a lot of other music as well. And what kind of drew me to Afrobeat, I guess, in the first instance, is the intensity and rhythmic intensity of you know, a lot of people playing all together as well, I guess. But I guess the kind of the message and the kind of often the agenda of that music is quite often vocal. And we are an instrumental band, so I guess what I was trying to do when I was writing this record is to reflect, you know, the emotional aspect of music and the profound aspect of music through instrumentation and through orchestration rather than like, you know, a vocal message. Quest on the Capricorn comes from a David Attenborough documentary from 1963. It was actually, funnily enough, I saw the name and I loved it and I was like, that's a cool name, I'm going to use that. But then kind of like I watched the doco and it's actually, I mean, in 1963, really young David Attenborough comes to Australia and it's actually about the Northern Territory. So I thought it was a cool name, and for me it conjured up, you know, quite profound cosmic imagery, and being very influenced in this ensemble, and as a composer by, you know, the music of Sun Ra in a lot of ways, that kind of resonated with me. And I guess the name Quest on the Capricorn kind of drove a lot of the composition. For example, the track End of the Sun, there's a bit in it, and I just told the players, I'm like, this is the sun ending at this point in the music. And it sounds ridiculous to say that, you know, but at the same time, in order to play outside of yourself and to actually embody some emotion in your music, especially instrumental music, I think it's very important to have that kind of visual imagery. What's different about this record is that it was kind of conceived for a much larger ensemble than the first record. For me, when I was writing, I was thinking about recordings and sounds that used very large ensembles, big bands, you know, like between, you know, 9 and kind of like 25-piece groups, and listening to a lot of orchestral music as well. And so I really wanted to get that in there into our music, and in order to do that, we kind of had to expand the group quite considerably. So we were performing with like a 9-piece group, between kind of 7 and 9 pieces, sometimes more percussion. But for this record, we needed a whole bunch more people, so we added pretty much 7 horns to that lineup.
Quest on the Capricorn is, I guess, a slight departure from the first album, Flight of the Ancients. We obviously have an expanded band. We've got 18 pieces, so a lot more horns, more percussion, and because of that, we're able to get a whole different color, and a lot of the pieces are a lot more composed. So we're playing the same music, it's coming from a lot of the same places, but there's a lot more different influences that we've been getting into the tunes. Because of the expanded compositional aspect of a lot of the tunes, we're able to utilize the different colors that having lots of percussion could have, and I think it really added. We spent a lot more time trying to find the individual roles in the band and trying to come up with, you know, drawing on lots of, I guess, traditional sounds, African sounds, but also trying to make it fit within our own sound.
So the whole project kind of took place. We had an opportunity to do a show at the Adelaide Festival Centre. It's rare that you get to do shows on stages that are big enough to kind of have 18 people on stage, and that you know that the production is going to be good enough that it's going to look and sound good. So we were kind of given the opportunity to present a show there, and rather than just do a straight ahead show, and I wanted to do the next record, and I thought, you know what, we're gonna do something big. And so I rang up everyone and booked 18 people to come to the show, promised them money that I didn't have at the time, and just decided to make it work. So they flew in on a Thursday, and we did 2 rehearsals, which retrospectively probably would have been a lot better if there was 3 or 4. We performed on the Saturday night, had a rest day on the Sunday, and then we're in the studio Monday and Tuesday. So it was a very concentrated period of time. Like no one had seen any music beforehand. I think I'd sent some of the scores to some people, but it was like 2 days before, and everyone had kind of like just flown in from around the place. So I guess it was a very fresh vibe. I don't know if everyone knew exactly what to expect. The guys in the rhythm section had a bit of a hit on some of the charts, so they knew what was coming. But the horn stuff was very fresh.
Essentially, all of the charts really play themselves because they're written so well, and the compositions themselves are so strong. It only really takes one run through and everyone gets it, and that's a great indication of fantastic writing and sort of real solid vision for the project.
Ross is always passionate about a goal that we're going for. And so for this record it was different from the last one, and he kind of takes everyone along on that journey and explains, even while we're doing rehearsals, explaining sort of the imagery that we're trying to evoke in each section of each piece, and so you kind of get the sense of there being a storyline or a narrative to what you're playing, which is a little bit different to other stuff where you've got to think about what chords you're playing, what notes you're playing. In this, it's more about the way in which you're playing it that becomes important.
I've been hearing the music in my head and through crappy like playback from my sketches I did on Logic for 3 months or so, and to finally hear that realized in rehearsal with 10 horn players, it was a great moment. To take that directly to performance, like it was exhilarating, and hearing it back, I don't know how I'm going to take a step back from that. Like I want to do another record with a bigger ensemble.
Firstly, it was because we were supporting ourselves as the Transatlantics. And we thought people would think we were wankers if we the same people in the same band.
So let's just go.
And the first gig we did, we had these full elaborate. Erin was probably there.
Yeah.
What it was like a 45 launch for the Transatlantics.
Yeah, I think so.
And we had these like ninja style face masks. And like
creepy.
but then it's when you look at people when you got your whole face covered like for a cue, like everything just kind of looks panicked. So it didn't really work very well because every time you looked at someone, it kind of looked like they were either fucking up or like you'd fuck something up. So then we lost the face masks, but we kept the robes because I think it's very hard to play convincingly out there, in jeans and a t-shirt, and sometimes it helps to have a little bit of a guise that you can use to express yourself, be someone else for a moment. And I think it was actually Erin that came up with the suggestion of the face paint.
Yeah.
I'm certain it was.
Yeah.
I don't remember the conversation, do you?
We're talking about not letting you wear your robes.
That's right.
And it's just like, well, we face paint, we can face paint you.
Yeah, that's right. And then they let that go.
Yeah, and we didn't face paint your one, right?
Yeah, I think we were kind of concerned that it was going to be so hot that it might just melt all over everything.
That would still be cool, though.
Yeah.
Just in a different way. It's Melbourne.
No, they're just... Yeah. Just never know. Yeah, it's just it kind of feels weird. It's going to be nuclear when I take my shoes off there. Yeah. Take my shoes off. I don't know. Yeah. Back. Yeah, that's it.
No, that's it. Thank you, guys.
With Hannah Carter. Yeah, man. Yeah, brother. Yeah, man.
Fantastic.
Kill it.
Rocks.
That's my brother. Thanks.
Yeah, you too, man.
Well done, you guys.
Can't wait
Tommy.
to see it.
Yeah. So did you get that?
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
brother.
Still getting it. Still getting it. I should probably hit stop.
The biggest thing about the way we like to record these sorts of records is that the emphasis is on performance and musicianship, really. So there's actually almost no augmentation at all when you're making a Shaolin Afronauts record. It's pretty much set up to pull the sounds and just make sure that the sounds work really well together. And and then it's pretty much a process of just making sure that everything's going to tape properly. Yeah, sort of whole takes, no edits, no overdubs. In fact, that's probably one of my favourite things about making a Shaolin Afronauts record, is that everything that you hear on a cut is what happened in that cut. Like all musicians play at once, all solos are laid down in the heat of the piece being played. So, yeah. Recording tape, definitely a large part of why we like to do it is the sound of tape. It definitely, from one perspective, that enhances how the musicians perform, because they know we can't sort of go in with the pencil tool and copy and paste sections, from one part of the song to another part of the song. So definitely, recording tape sort of definitely puts the musicians in a mind frame where I think that subconsciously they're going to perform better.
Is that cool?
Yep. Do you want us to tongue? Because we've got da 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 da.
Yeah.
Do you want us to do da?
Sorry, I still don't know where we're going from. I must have got the wrong.
No, you were right.
You were right.
I am, okay.
Yeah,
Right.
but there's a gap in between that.
Oh, right,
so
okay.
like
All
just
right,
a little
yeah,
line all the
sure.
way through.
Okay.
So you want it more da 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 da.
No, you can da 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 da.
Oh, it's still
Maybe that's not going to work that well.
you know, and recording to tape, it really, it's become very much a part of what I do in a lot of my productions, because it forces you to play in a certain way, because you know that you can't change anything, and because the musicians know that whatever they put down, you know, a solo or whatever, is going to make it to the record. It kind of forces you, it almost subconsciously, into a different attitude about recording. As soon as you have the option to change something, you inevitably do. But if you take that away, it gives the performance a quality that I don't think you can actually get without it.
It definitely has a whole sound to it that does sort of throw back to some of the guys who were sort of paying homage to. So, I mean, I suppose definitely if you were to think of some of the older influences like Fela Kuti and Sun Ra, definitely those records sound like they were made on tape machines because they were made on tape machines. And so there's, I don't know, part and parcel, I suppose, a little bit of a homage to the way that those guys did things by using 2-inch tape. And the whole thing sort of, I don't know, the tape machines just sort of sound more three-dimensional to me, and I like them a whole bunch more. And I don't know, I think definitely if you tried to make a Shaolin Afronauts recording with a computer, it would not quite work. It wouldn't quite sound right. With a lot of projects, you know, you might end up recording, you know, drums, bass, guitars, and a couple of things, but you throw everything away except for the drum track and start building it up again. And that can be a very disjointed way of making a record. But the great thing about making a Shaolin Afronauts record is that when you're sitting behind the board, everything very much is the go take. Yeah, so it's very exciting sitting behind the board cutting a Shaolin Afronauts record.
We rolling?
Yeah, we're rolling.
1, 2, 3.
The biggest challenge, I suppose, when you're cutting a very large ensemble to a limited amount of tracks, of 22 tracks, is to make sure that you're sort of recording acoustic spaces rather than sort of spot micing everything. Whereas, yeah, everything is sort of simplified, I suppose, to a certain degree with the Shaolin Afronauts. It's definitely about recording the sound of the whole band in the room rather than focusing on individual parts of the recording process one by one, I suppose.
The result is, it's very live. It's very, you know, personal. We recorded it the same way we performed it in the studio to a 2-inch tape machine. There are no edits. You know, everything is as it is, and it's raw, and there's mistakes in it. You know, but a lot of my favourite records are like that, and all my favourite Afrobeat records and funk records, you know, they have that human element to them. So I guess the way that we go about doing that is tracking live. You know, so the process is really about having a very open kind of sound with lots of kind of room mics and lots of ribbons, and putting that to tape, because I feel that it's a real accurate representation of the sound. Come the mid-90s, it seems to be the end of when bands went into studios and recorded records, and that was the sound of what you got was, you know, the same as what you got on the stage. And, you know, we feel really strongly about representing ourselves on record the same way that we do, the same way that we play, without any edits, without any overdubs, and leaving the mistakes in, because, man, we make mistakes.
This is good. This is good. Yeah. Just play from the top loaded tools.
It's pretty long arrangement. We could keep playing that all day, and one bit may or may not be better than the other bit. You know,
it's 7 minutes. Like 7 minutes.
It's probably the hardest.
I don't think the brass can keep playing it anyway.
I think that's the best of the horn sections.
Let's talk about
I'd say it's the most.
It's the most accurate.
I did screw up. I screwed up an album so far.
Sorry?
I screwed up an album so far. You just need to find the one where I got the leads.
get to work with wonderful musicians all the time, and it's the greatest pleasure of my life working with those guys. So having so many wonderful players all in the room at the same time was a great privilege and an honor, you know. Yeah, it was just dope, man. Yeah, smashed it.
It sounds like it's one of those fucked up Christmas things.